For months, the thunderous bass from next door made my walls tremble. When I asked them to turn it down, they mocked, "You can always move out." I smirked, "You first." That weekend, they opened their mailbox and their smug faces turned pale as they read the eviction notice. I had always dreamed of living in Chicago. The vibrant culture, the deep dish pizza, the towering skyline, it all seemed so perfect. So, when I found a cozy one-bedroom apartment in a charming brick building on the north side, I thought I had hit the jackpot. The rent was reasonable, the neighbors were friendly, and the neighborhood had a peaceful vibe that made me feel right at home. For the first 6 months, everything was smooth sailing. I established a routine, work during the day, unwind in the evenings, and enjoy the occasional weekend outing with friends. My apartment became my sanctuary, a place where I could relax and recharge. But that tranquility was shattered when new tenants moved into the unit directly below me. It started on a Friday evening. I was curled up on my couch, engrossed in a novel, when I felt a subtle vibration beneath me. At first, I dismissed it, thinking it was just the usual sounds of city life. But as the night wore on, the vibrations intensified, accompanied by the unmistakable thump of bass-heavy music. My walls seemed to pulsate in rhythm with the beat, and the floor trembled beneath my feet. I tried to ignore it, telling myself it was just a one-time thing. Maybe they were celebrating their move-in with a small gathering. But the next night, it happened again. And then again the following weekend. Each time, the music blared well into the early hours of the morning, making it nearly impossible for me to sleep. After a particularly restless night, I decided to address the issue head-on. The next evening, around 9 p.m., when the music started up again, I mustered the courage to go downstairs and knock on their door. I rehearsed my words, aiming for a polite yet firm approach. The door swung open, revealing a young man in his late 20s. He had a smug expression, and behind him I could see a group of people lounging around, drinks in hand. The apartment was dimly lit, with colorful LED lights casting a glow over the scene. "Hey," I began, offering a friendly smile. "I'm your neighbor from upstairs. I was wondering if you could lower the music a bit. It's been quite loud, and it's been hard for me to get any rest." He leaned against the doorframe, a sly grin spreading across his face. "You can always move out if it's too much for you," he said, his tone dripping with sarcasm. Before I could respond, he closed the door in my face. I stood there stunned. The audacity left me speechless. As I turned to head back upstairs, I could hear their laughter echoing behind me, each chuckle fueling my frustration. Determined not to let this slide, I began documenting every incident. I kept a detailed log, dates, times, and the duration of the disturbances. I recorded videos capturing the noise levels, ensuring I had concrete evidence. My first course of action was to approach the building management. The property manager, Mrs. Thompson, was an older woman with a stern demeanor. I presented my meticulously gathered evidence, hoping for swift action. "I'll send them a warning," she assured me, flipping through my notes. "But these things take time. Time. A luxury I felt I didn't have." The warnings seemed to have little effect. If anything, the music grew louder, the parties more frequent. My patience wore thin, and my work performance began to suffer due to the sleepless nights. One particularly unbearable night, around 3 a.m., I reached my breaking point. I called the non-emergency police line, explaining the situation. Officers arrived and the music momentarily ceased. But as soon as they left, it resumed, louder than before. It was a blatant challenge, a sign that they felt untouchable. I realized that conventional methods were failing me. I needed to be strategic, to play the long game. Delving into tenant rights and local noise ordinances, I armed myself with knowledge. Chicago had clear regulations about noise levels, especially during nighttime hours. I also discovered that repeated violations could lead to eviction. With renewed determination, I compiled a comprehensive report, including my documented incidents, video evidence, and references to local laws. I submitted this to Mrs. Thompson and insisted on a formal complaint process. Reluctantly, she agreed to escalate the matter. The building's management scheduled a mediation meeting. Sitting across from my neighbors in the sterile conference room, I felt a mix of anxiety and resolve. They appeared nonchalant, even amused. "Look," the young man began, leaning back in his chair. "We're just enjoying our space. If she has a problem, maybe she should find somewhere else to live." I took a deep breath, steadying my voice. "I have the right to a peaceful living environment. Your actions are violating city noise ordinances and our building's policies. If this continues, it could lead to serious consequences for you." Their smirks faded slightly, but they remained defiant. The mediation ended without resolution, but I sensed a shift. They knew I was serious. Over the next few weeks, I continued my documentation. The disturbances persisted, but I remained vigilant. I submitted each new incident to Mrs. Thompson, who, perhaps fearing legal repercussions, finally issued a formal eviction notice based on the accumulated evidence and their breach of lease agreements. The day they received the notice, I happened to be checking my mail. I watched as they opened the letter, their faces draining of color. The young man looked up, meeting my gaze. I offered a small, satisfied smile before turning to ascend the stairs to my apartment. The following weekend, they moved out. The building returned to its peaceful state, the walls no longer trembling with intrusive bass. I reclaimed my sanctuary, the experience leaving me more resilient and aware of the importance of standing up for one's rights. After they moved out, I thought it was over. I finally had quiet. My apartment felt like home again. For the first time in months, I could hear the soft hum of my fridge at night instead of bass shaking the walls. I slept better. I worked better. I even started smiling more. But peace didn't last. 2 weeks after they left, I noticed something weird. It started with small things. A scratch across the hood of my car. I parked on the street like everyone else, but mine was the only one with damage. Then came the garbage. Someone dumped a full bag of trash right on my windshield. The smell was awful. I had to use gloves just to get it off. At first, I thought it was random. Just bad luck. Then I saw him. One morning, I looked out my window while sipping coffee, and there he was. The guy from downstairs. Just standing across the street, leaning on a lamppost, staring up at my building. He didn't do anything, didn't move, didn't say a word. Just stared. I felt this chill crawl up my spine. I closed my blinds and locked my door, even though it was broad daylight. He was back. Somehow he was still around. I didn't know if he was crashing with someone or just stalking me out of revenge. But from that day on, I started looking over my shoulder more. My tires got slashed the next week. Twice. I had to replace them both times. It wasn't just bad luck anymore. I filed a police report. They took it down but didn't seem interested. I had no video, no real proof. Just a bad feeling and a couple of bills. So I got a camera. I installed a motion-activated one pointing out my living room window, capturing the street. 2 nights later, it caught him. Not his face, not clearly. But his shape, his posture, just like how he used to lean in the hallway downstairs. I sent the footage to the cops. Still, nothing. I had to get smarter. I started asking around. I talked to the new tenants below me, nice couple, quiet, respectful. They said they'd seen a guy lurking behind the building a few times. Tall, hoodie, didn't say a word. Just walked the alley like he was waiting for something. Then I remembered something important. When they moved out, they left angry. They trashed the place. Broke a window, punched a hole in the drywall. Mrs. Thompson had to call in a cleaning crew and a handyman. I figured maybe there was more to it. So I went to her. Told her what was happening. She looked concerned at first. Then she looked guilty. "There's something you should know," she said. "I probably should have told you earlier." Apparently, after the eviction, the guy, his name was Brad, started threatening her. Left voicemails. Harassing emails. Even said something about how the snitch upstairs was going to regret it. That was me. He blamed me. Turns out he never really left the area. He was crashing with a friend in a different building nearby. And he wasn't just mad, he was obsessed. I became his target. I asked her why she didn't tell me. She said she didn't want to scare me. That she thought he'd cool off. He didn't. A few nights later, things escalated. I came home late from work and found my apartment door slightly open. Nothing inside was stolen. Nothing broken. Just the door open. That was worse than if something had been missing. It meant someone had been inside. And they didn't take anything, they just wanted me to know they could get in. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat on the couch, baseball bat in hand, heart racing at every creak in the walls. The next morning, I installed a second camera. Then I changed the locks. I even got a dog. A rescue mutt named Duke who barked at every shadow. I didn't care. I needed some peace of mind. I started thinking about moving. But I was angry too. I didn't want him to win. I'd fought so hard to get rid of the noise, the stress, the chaos. I wasn't going to let him take that away again. I started digging deeper. I found out where he was staying just a few blocks over at his cousin's place. A dump of a unit above a pizza shop. I didn't do anything illegal. I just watched. I kept track. I waited. Because if he wanted to play games, I could play too. I didn't want revenge. I wanted him gone. For real this time. What I did next? Well, that's when things really started to get serious. So I kept watching him. Every morning before work, I'd swing by the pizza place, park across the street, and just sit for a bit, pretending to scroll my phone. Most days, I'd see him come out around noon, always looking over his shoulder. He had that paranoid twitch to him now. He didn't walk like someone just living his life. He walked like someone who knew he was being watched too. I figured I had leverage, but I still didn't know what I was going to do with it. Then, one evening, something changed. I was reviewing camera footage from my hallway, just routine at that point, and I saw something I hadn't expected, a woman. Not someone I recognized from the building. She was young, maybe early 20s, nervous-looking, wearing an oversized hoodie that nearly swallowed her. She hesitated outside my door, looked around, knocked softly, then she left. I didn't think much of it, maybe a delivery mistake or wrong apartment. But she came back the next night. Same time. Knocked again. This time, she slipped a folded note under the door before she left. I picked it up, unfolded it. Written in rushed handwriting, "He's not just mad. He's dangerous. He's planning something. You need to go to the police. Please don't tell him I warned you." See, I froze. See? I didn't know who that was. Then it hit me, Brad's girlfriend. Or maybe ex. I remembered seeing her at the old parties, usually quiet, always on the edge of the couch, staring at her phone like she didn't want to be there. I wanted to ignore it. I really did. But my gut told me not to. I filed a second police report, this time with the note, the footage, and everything I had. The officer on duty said he'd escalate it, but I could tell by his tone that nothing was going to happen fast. So I changed tactics. I called my cousin. He's not a cop, but he works in a security firm. Real blue-collar, no BS kind of guy. I told him what was going on. He said, "You're not crazy. This guy's trying to mess with your head." He offered to come stay with me a few nights. Just in case. That same weekend, things boiled over. It was a Friday night. Duke, the dog, started growling around 2 a.m. low, quiet growls that turned into full-on barking. My cousin jumped off the couch, baseball bat in hand. I grabbed my phone and checked the front cam. There he was. Brad. Standing in the hallway outside my apartment. Hoodie on. Hands in his pockets. Not moving. I called 911, but by the time the cops arrived, he was gone. They said he hadn't broken in, hadn't made a threat, and since he used to live there, he probably just got confused. I was furious. Confused? At 2 a.m.? But I knew better now. The next morning, I took matters into my own hands. I found C. I won't say how, let's just say social media is a powerful tool when you know what to look for. I messaged her. Told her I got her note. I thanked her. Said I wasn't going to tell anyone anything, but I needed to know more if I was going to stop him. She responded an hour later. We met at a diner 2 neighborhoods over, in a booth by the window. She looked even more nervous in person, kept glancing at the door. She told me everything. He wasn't just bitter. He was obsessive. Ever since they got evicted, he'd blamed me, not the manager, not the lease violation, me. He talked about me constantly. Said I ruined his life. Said I'd pay for what I did. She left him after he started talking about doing something big. He said he wasn't gonna hurt you, she whispered, but he also said he wanted to ruin you. Like, destroy your peace. He said the worst thing he could do to you wasn't hurting you, it was making you feel unsafe forever. It was psychological warfare. That's when I realized he wasn't trying to scare me once. He was trying to make fear my permanent roommate. He wanted me to never feel safe again. And it was working. But that also gave me clarity. He wasn't just mad. He was methodical. Which meant I could be too. I didn't want revenge anymore. I wanted to trap him. Legally. Cleanly. Finally. And I had an idea. Something he wouldn't see coming. Let's just say it involves more than one building manager, a few surveillance setups, and one very specific lease violation at the pizza place he was crashing in. Because if you thought eviction was the end of the story, it's not. Want to hear the plan? Here's how it all ended. I found out Brad wasn't just crashing at his cousin's. He'd actually gotten himself added to the lease somehow. Probably under the table, maybe using some fake paperwork, but enough to make him more than just a guest. And here's where it gets interesting. Chicago housing laws? Pretty strict. You can't sublet or sneak someone onto a lease without approval, especially in commercial/residential mixed zones like that pizza shop building. I figured if he'd bent the rules once, maybe he bent them somewhere else too. So I dug deeper. The building he was in had multiple complaints over the years. Safety issues, rodents, even illegal renovations. I found old inspection reports and cross-referenced his cousin's name on housing forums. Then I made the right call to the city's Department of Buildings. I submitted an anonymous complaint, attached everything I found. A week later, inspectors showed up. 2 days after that, a notice was posted on the door. Major violations. Unsafe structure. Tenants had 30 days to vacate. Brad was getting evicted again. This time not by me, by the city. I watched from a distance when it happened. He looked stunned. His cousin yelled at him in the street. He tried to argue with the inspector, but there was nothing he could do. The building wasn't safe and now he had nowhere to go. But it didn't stop there. Remember the note from C, the girlfriend who left him? Well, when I met her, I told her what I planned to do. I asked if she'd be willing to talk to someone at the police station about the threats. She said yes. I followed up, gave the officer her statement, the footage of Brad outside my door, the trash, the tire damage, the note. This time they listened. He got picked up for trespassing and harassment. They didn't press hard charges, but enough for a restraining order. He couldn't come within 300 feet of me or my apartment. Not legally. If he did, he'd be arrested. And now for the part one didn't expect. 1 month later, I got a knock on the door. It was the building manager, Mrs. Thompson. She was being investigated too. Turns out she'd covered for multiple tenant complaints over the years, mine included. Some tenants had moved out quietly. Others had written bad reviews that mysteriously disappeared. She'd been lazy with the paperwork, allowed Brad and his friends to stay too long without proper background checks, and ignored multiple city warnings about the building's upkeep. She lost her job. They brought in a new property management company, and the building got a full audit. So here I was. Finally, everything quiet, safe. No more pounding bass. No more scratching at my car. No more notes under the door. And yet, I didn't feel victorious. Not really. I made mistakes too. I let things go too long. I didn't record things right away. I thought being polite would work when it clearly wouldn't. I underestimated what people would do when they feel like they've lost power. I let fear control me for too long. And when I finally acted, I had to become cold. Strategic. I didn't enjoy it, but I did it. And I'd do it again if I had to. Brad? Last I heard, he moved to a friend's place out in Cicero. But he left behind a mess of broken relationships, fines, and a reputation as a nightmare tenant. Me? I stayed. Got a new door. Kept the cameras. Duke still barks at shadows, and honestly, I let him. It reminds me not to get too comfortable. Because peace, you don't always get it by asking. Sometimes you have to take it, and make damn sure no one ever tries to steal it from you again.